He had everything: power, wealth, control. But the moment he saw that little girl's face, everything inside him froze. Not because she was crying, not because she clutched a worn drawing in her small hand, but because she had his birthmark, a mark he hadn't seen on another soul since he was a child. She looked up at him and whispered 5 words that would change everything. "Sir, are you my father?" In that instant, millionaire executive Evan Whitmore, who had buried his past beneath boardrooms and broken promises, was forced to confront a truth he didn't even know existed. A daughter he never knew. A love he never expected. A legacy nearly lost to silence. But who was this girl? Why had her mother kept the secret? And could one quiet question unlock the second chance no one thought he deserved? This is a story about memory, about forgiveness, about what happens when the heart speaks louder than bloodlines. If you've ever believed that one moment can change a life, this story is for you. Like, share, and subscribe to join us on this powerful journey. Let's begin. The rain came down in soft sheets, tapping against the windows of Alder and Elm Café, a cozy corner spot tucked between a flower shop and a used bookstore in downtown Portland. Inside, the scent of espresso clung to the air like memory. Evan Whitmore exhaled slowly, loosening his collar with a practiced motion. His wrist ached from the watch he'd worn too long. His eyes were tired, not from lack of sleep, but from years of holding too much back. Another deal closed, another zero added to the fortune he'd long stopped counting. He was 39, a tech magnate, founder of Arc North Systems, once the darling of Silicon Valley. Lately, just another boardroom ghost with a titanium wallet and a paper-thin life. "The usual, Mr. Whitmore?" asked Clara, the barista, who never asked for selfies. Evan nodded without looking up. He welcomed this place low light, real wood, real conversation. If not for these evening stops, he might have forgotten what silence sounded like. But tonight, something shifted. He noticed her just as Clara began frothing the milk. A small figure huddled beneath the cafe's awning, sitting alone, maybe 6 or 7 years old. A little girl with a purple backpack shaped like a star. Her knees hugged to her chest, her face tilted toward the rain. She wasn't crying, but she wasn't moving either. A strange heaviness filled Evan's chest. He rose without a word. "Hold the coffee," he said softly. Clara blinked. "You okay? Just give me a second." Evan pushed the door open. The bell above jingled as the cold air met warm. Outside, the city sounds hushed under the drizzle. The little girl didn't move as he approached, but her eyes lifted toward him, wide, brown, calm. He crouched to meet her gaze. "Hey there," he said gently. "It's not really weather for waiting." "You okay? I'm waiting for someone," she answered, matter of fact. Her voice surprised him, clear, strong, and steady. "Who are you waiting for?" "My mom's friend, Auntie Elaine. She's late sometimes." Evan nodded slowly. "You know her phone number?" "I don't have a phone," she said, as if that explained everything. There was something deeply self-possessed about the girl, her posture, her calm, the way she spoke like someone older than her years. "I'm Evan," he offered. "What's your name, Callie?" she said. "Callie Evans." "Evans." His breath caught, just for a moment. She extended her hand, small fingers, chilled from the air. He smiled faintly and took it, the way one might take a fragile thing from a ledge. "Well, Callie, how about we wait inside where it's dry? I can get you some hot chocolate." She looked past him to the cafe door, hesitating just a second, then nodded. "I like marshmallows," she added, very seriously. "Deal." They stepped inside together. Clara blinked but said nothing, simply nodding toward the back corner booth. Evan ordered the drinks and returned to the table. As Callie climbed into the booth, she rolled up her sleeves. That's when he saw it. A small birthmark on her right wrist, crescent-shaped, soft brown against her skin. His breath stalled. The shape was unmistakable. He had the same mark. So had his mother. It wasn't common. His pediatrician had once called it a familial trait. He'd always dismissed it as a coincidence of nature. Until now. That's a cool mark, he said carefully, gesturing toward her wrist. She glanced at it. My mom had one too. She said, same shape. His fingers curled around the mug. Heat didn't reach his skin. Do you live nearby? He asked, voice too casual. We used to. Mom passed away. Now I live with Auntie Elaine. Evan stared down at his untouched Americano. The hum of the café faded behind a rising throb in his ears. I'm sorry to hear that, he said. She said, my dad's name was Evan, but I think she meant my teddy. I had a teddy named Evan. His heart sank like a stone. What was your mom's name? Rachel. He didn't need to hear the last name, but she said it anyway. Rachel Evans. His vision blurred. Rachel, college sweetheart, the only person who'd seen past his ambition and loved him for the quiet he kept inside. They had split in his final year. She left a note, said she needed to find her own voice. He never saw her again. Until now. Callie reached into her backpack and pulled out a tiny picture, worn and laminated. That's her, she said, sliding it across the table. The woman in the photo had deep eyes and a tired smile. Rachel. Still beautiful. Still strong. Evan traced the edges of the photo with his thumb. She was amazing, he whispered. Callie studied him. Did you know her? Evan looked up. Yes, he said, a long time ago. The hot chocolate arrived. Callie dunked her marshmallows, humming quietly. Evan couldn't stop staring. Her expressions, her voice, her calm. Rachel had always been calm in the middle of chaos. So was Callie. He had questions, 1,000 of them, but none he could ask yet. Can I draw? She asked, pulling out crayons. Of course. She handed him a blank sheet of paper. Can you draw a tree? She asked. Evan blinked. He hadn't drawn anything in years. But he tried. The tree came out crooked. Callie giggled. You made it lopsided. I guess I'm a little rusty, he admitted. Callie picked up the blue crayon. It's okay, she said. My mom used to say. Sometimes trees grow crooked and still reach the sky. Evan swallowed hard. He would stay until Elaine arrived. He would ask questions. He would find the truth. But for now, he sat with his daughter, who didn't know he was her father, and listened to the rain tap softly against the windows. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. Evan didn't sleep that night. Not because of caffeine or deals or deadlines. The kind of restlessness he felt was deeper. Restless like roots, trying to remember where they came from. He sat in the quiet of his penthouse apartment, a place that echoed too much. Lights dimmed, the city shimmering below his floor-to-ceiling windows. He still saw her. The little girl with the purple backpack, the way she said Evans like it was the most natural thing in the world, the crescent birthmark, the photo of Rachel. He opened his laptop, typed slowly Rachel Evans, Portland, obituary. The search results came fast. He scrolled until one headline stopped him cold. Local artist Rachel Evans remembered as mother, teacher, and advocate. He clicked. A simple write-up. Died 7 years ago due to complications during childbirth. Survived by a daughter, Callie. There was no mention of the father. Of course there wasn't. The air felt thin. He rose from the desk and paced. His mind shouted 1,000 things at once. But beneath the noise, a softer voice cut through like a whisper in fog. "What if she's yours?" He reached for his phone. "Lena," he said as soon as she answered. It was well past midnight. "Everything okay?" Her voice was groggy, but alert. "I need you to run a search, quietly. A girl named Callie Evans. Mother's name was Rachel. See if there's any record of paternity, custody, anything. I need to know where she's been living and with who." Silence. Then Lena said gently, "Is this personal?" "Very. I'll get back to you in the morning." He hung up and stood at the window again, staring out over the city, but his mind was nowhere near the lights. It was back at Alder and Elm, at the curve of a birthmark, at a 7-year-old drawing crooked trees and quoting her mother like scripture. Rachel had always said things like that, things that sounded like poetry and landed like truth. He remembered her sketching on napkins, the way she would get paint on her elbows. She called him her logic and said he made her believe in gravity. They had been each other's opposites, but maybe that's what made them last longer than anyone expected. Until they didn't. He'd been chasing deals, building Arc North, going to Tokyo for pitches and Paris for funding rounds. Rachel wanted roots, a quiet place to paint. He wanted to fly, so she let him go. They never spoke again, until now. Morning came too fast. He hadn't slept. At 7:10, Lena called. "I found a birth certificate. Callie Ray Evans, no father listed. She's been living with an Elaine Fisher for the past 6 years. Legal guardian, court appointed after Rachel's death." "Do we know if Rachel ever tried to contact me?" "I also found something else." A pause. "Lena. Your name came up in a few old notes, handwritten letters, addressed to you. I think she sent them after Callie was born." He went still. "You have them. I tracked them to your old office building in Palo Alto." "Archives from when your Uncle Victor was your legal and financial handler." "You remember that time?" "Of course he did. His parents had died in a car crash when he was 25. Victor, his mother's brother, had stepped in, handled the trust, co-signed every deal, built guardrails around Evan's life until Evan was too busy to challenge them." "Lena," he said, "if Rachel wrote and I never saw it, then someone made sure you didn't." He felt the weight in his lungs, like memory wasn't just something you remembered, it was something that could suffocate. "I need copies of those letters." "I'm already on it." He ended the call and walked to the small glass case near his bookshelf. Inside was a photo, a graduation photo, him in a dark green robe, Rachel beside him, wearing a sunflower dress, smiling like she already knew the world would try to break her and she'd survive it anyway. She was holding his hand. He touched the glass. "I should have found you," he said quietly. His phone buzzed again, a message from Lena. It was a scanned image, a letter, addressed to Evan Whitmore, care of Arc North Systems, 2016. The handwriting hit him like lightning. Rachel's. He read it slowly. "Evan, I know this isn't fair. I know it's been years. But I need you to know. You're a father. I tried calling, but your office routes me to your uncle. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but if you do." His eyes blurred. He kept reading. "Her name is Callie. She's strong. Evan. So strong, like you. I don't want anything from you. Just, if someday you wonder, you should know she exists. And she's perfect." His knees buckled. He sat on the edge of the couch and read it again. She had tried. Victor had blocked her. For years, his daughter was alive, and he'd missed every first word, every bedtime story, every moment. His chest burned. He rose, showered, dressed. He looked in the mirror. The man who stared back looked nothing like the young founder on the magazine covers. There were lines now, shadows beneath the eyes, but something else to resolve. Callie was his, not just biologically, not just legally, but in the way that mattered most, and he was going to fight for her, not with money, with truth, with presence. He called Lena again. I want a full history on Elaine Fisher, where she works, where Callie goes to school, and I want a copy of the DNA kit couriered to me today. Already ordered, Lena said. And Evan. Yeah. You're doing the right thing. He closed his eyes. I hope it's not too late. That afternoon, he returned to Alder and Elm. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. A glimpse of her again. A chance meeting. Maybe it was just that something in that cafe still felt connected to her. Clara greeted him with a nod. She's been by before. You know, she said. Who? The girl, with the backpack. She comes in sometimes with a woman. Wavy hair, kind of strict. She gets hot chocolate and always wants extra marshmallows. That's her, Evan said softly. That's Callie. Clara tilted her head. You okay, Mr. Whitmore? You don't look like yourself. I think I'm just remembering who that is. He sat in the same booth, looking out at the street, and as the rain started again, he let it come. The guilt, the sorrow, the wonder. He hadn't known, but now he did, and everything was about to change. The DNA kit arrived the next morning, hand-delivered to Evan's penthouse before sunrise. He didn't even wait to finish his coffee. He followed the instructions in silence, swabbed his cheek, sealed the envelope, and handed it back to the courier without saying a word. As the elevator doors closed, Evan stood in the doorway for a long time, looking down at his palm as if it still held the cotton swab that might change the rest of his life. He felt absurdly calm, but inside, something kept shifting. Not panic, not doubt, just weight. The kind of weight that comes with the realization that you've been walking through your life without knowing you were missing a piece of your soul. By 8 a.m., Lena had sent a full report. Elaine Fisher was a registered social services advocate, worked with domestic abuse survivors. She and Rachel had been college roommates, then co-workers. After Rachel's passing, Elaine had taken guardianship of Callie, without contest. She lived in a modest craftsman home in East Portland. No known partner, no children of her own. She's clean, Lena said over the phone. Protective, though. She refused a few foster family requests, made sure Callie stayed out of any system. Evan sat by the window as sunlight crept across his hardwood floors. He was silent for a long moment. She's been raising my daughter, he said quietly. She has, Lena replied. And from what I can tell, she's done a pretty damn good job. Evan nodded, even though she couldn't see it. He knew what was coming next, and it terrified him. He had to go see Elaine, not as a tech mogul, not as a stranger, but as a man who had unknowingly abandoned his child, who wanted to do better if it wasn't too late. He spent the afternoon writing down what he wanted to say. Nothing flowed right. Every version of his introduction sounded defensive, desperate, or dishonest. Finally, he threw the notepad into the trash and put on his coat. By 5:30 p.m., he was standing on Elaine's front porch. The garden was neat, hydrangeas just starting to bloom. The porch light flickered on automatically with a click that made him flinch. He took a breath, knocked twice. Footsteps approached. The door creaked open just wide enough to reveal a woman with gray-streaked hair tied back, sharp eyes, and a face marked with exhaustion and resolve. "Can I help you?" she asked. Cool and direct, Elaine Evans said, hands tucked into his coat pockets. My name is Evan Whitmore." Her eyes didn't blink. Her hand remained on the doorframe. "I know who you are." The words hung between them like a blade. "I need to talk to you," he said. "It's about Callie." I figured she didn't invite him in. Evan nodded. "I understand if you don't want to talk here. This won't take long." I didn't know. Elaine, I didn't know Rachel was pregnant. I didn't know she passed. I only found out last week. I met Callie by chance. Elaine's expression didn't soften. "You expect me to believe that I don't expect anything, but I have proof. Letters, phone logs, DNA results are on the way." Elaine narrowed her eyes. "You think a piece of paper makes you a father?" "No," he said, voice quiet. "I don't. But maybe it lets me try." She studied him, hard, then, finally, stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "5 minutes," she said. "Talk." They sat on the porch steps. Evan inhaled slowly. "I met Rachel in college," he began. "We dated for 3 years. She was the only person who ever slowed me down. I wasn't ready then. When she left, I thought it was her choice. I didn't chase her." "You didn't call," Elaine added. "Not once." "No," he said honestly. "I didn't." He pulled out a printed letter, folded in thirds. "This is hers," he said, "dated 6 months after she gave birth. She mailed it to me. My uncle intercepted it. He kept everything from me, voicemails, mail, legal filings. He was managing my company at the time. Thought a child would derail my path." Elaine took the letter but didn't open it. "And now you want to waltz back into her daughter's life. I want to make it right." "Why now?" she asked. "Because you saw her birthmark, because you felt a spark of guilt, or because a part of you realized you're alone in your penthouse and scared of dying with nothing real?" The questions hit hard. Evan didn't flinch. "All of the above," he said, but mostly because she looked at me with Rachel's eyes and smiled like she didn't know I'd failed her. Elaine looked away. "I was there when Rachel died," she said after a while. "She told me to raise Callie with love. Told me that if anything ever happened to her, she hoped one day you'd come back. I thought she was being naive. I told her you were probably long gone, wrapped up in stocks and screens and power lunches. She still believed in you." Evan's throat tightened. "I would have come," he said, "if I'd known." She finally looked at him. "I believe you." The words came softer than he expected. "I don't trust you yet," she added, "but I believe you." He nodded. "That's fair." Elaine stood. "Callie doesn't know who you are. She remembers your name, but she thinks you're a story. I didn't want to tell her the truth unless I knew you had the heart to stay." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I guess we'll see." She walked him to the gate. "Don't expect her to fall into your arms." "Evan, she's not a movie character. She's a real girl with real wounds and real questions." He looked up at the house. "I want her to ask all of them." Elaine hesitated, then handed him the folded letter again. "Keep this. You're going to need to read it more than once." He nodded and turned toward his car. Back at home, Evan poured himself a drink but didn't touch it. He sat by the window again, opened the letter, and read Rachel's words for the 3rd time. The ache in his chest was no longer grief. It was something closer to hope, quiet, heavy, and very much alive. Evan showed up on a Tuesday. It was cloudy but dry. Portland in early spring. He stood outside Callie's school gates, his hands deep in his coat pockets, trying not to look like a man about to walk into his own future. Elaine had agreed to let him pick Callie up. One day, one walk. Nothing more. No introductions. She'd said, "She knows you as Evan, not Dad. Let's keep it that way. For now." He'd agreed. He wasn't here to claim anything, just to be present. The bell rang. Children spilled out, some running, some skipping, some dragging backpacks as if they weighed the world. And then, there she was, Callie. Her hair was pulled back in a crooked ponytail. She wore a navy hoodie and mismatched socks, one with stars, the other with tiny pink turtles. Her backpack bobbed as she walked. She looked around, spotted him, and waved. "You came back," she said as she reached him, her voice casual, as if she'd always expected it. "Of course I did," Evan said, voice quiet. She fell into step beside him. "Clara said you don't come in the mornings," Callie added. "Only afternoons." Evan smiled. "She's right. I'm more of a late coffee kind of guy." Callie shrugged. "I like mornings better. They feel clean, like everything's just starting." Evan looked down at her. "That's a nice way to see the world." She didn't answer, just stepped over a crack in the sidewalk like it mattered. They walked 2 blocks in silence. Evan carried her backpack without being asked. It was heavier than it looked. "What's in here?" "Rock's books," she said. "And my dinosaur. His name's Lucas. I didn't know dinosaurs liked backpacks." She smiled. "He's very sophisticated." They turned down a quieter street. The trees lining the sidewalk were still bare, but small buds dotted the branches, the promise of something new. "You said you liked trees," she said suddenly. "Last time, you drew one." "I did. It was a terrible tree." "It was okay. Just wobbly. I think I'm still a little wobbly." Callie considered that. "Wobbly's not bad." She said, "It means you're still learning." Evan blinked. She had Rachel's voice, not the sound of it, but the rhythm. The way she wrapped truths in soft words and let them land like feathers light at first, but impossible to forget. At the next corner, they paused. "This is where I usually wait," Callie said. Evan looked around. A small bench stood beneath a maple tree. The sidewalk was cracked, roots pushing through the concrete like slow fists. "You want to sit?" She nodded. They sat, shoulder to shoulder. "Do you like your job?" she asked. He hesitated. "I used to think I did," he said, "but lately, I think I've just been busy." Callie kicked at a pebble. "My mom was an artist," she said. "She painted a lot, but not for money, just to feel things." "That sounds like her," Evan said before he could stop himself. Callie turned. "You knew her." Evan's throat tightened. "A long time ago," he said carefully. "Before you were born, she used to talk about painting trees." Callie's eyes narrowed, not suspicious, just curious. She said, "My dad liked trees too." She said, "But he didn't stay." Evan looked down. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "It's okay," she replied. "Auntie says some people leave before they know what they're missing." Evan wanted to speak, to explain, to say that he hadn't left, that he hadn't known. But this wasn't the moment, so he nodded instead. "She was really good," Callie said after a while, "at drawing feelings, like she could make a cloud look like it was thinking." Evan smiled. "I'd like to see one of her paintings someday." "You can... We have some in the house." He didn't ask if she meant their house. He didn't press. He just sat with her in the quiet. "I made something too," Callie said suddenly. She unzipped the front pocket of her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "It's not finished," she warned. Evan opened it. A pencil sketch. A tall man and a little girl sitting on a bench beneath a crooked tree. The lines were loose, unsure, but the emotion was clear. "This is beautiful," he said. She shrugged. "It's just what I saw." He folded it carefully. "Can I keep it okay?" she said, as if it wasn't a big deal. But it was. To him, it was everything. They sat for a while longer. Then Callie stood, Auntie says dinner's at 6. She said, I have to go. I'll walk you back. She nodded. When they reached the porch, Elaine opened the door. She nodded to Evan, eyes cautious. Thanks, Evan said simply. Callie turned before stepping inside. Are you coming back? Evan looked at her, then at Elaine, then back to her. Yeah, he said, if that's okay. It's okay, Callie said, then disappeared inside. Evan stood there for a second too long. Elaine didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her expression said it all. You're late. You're lucky. Don't waste this. He walked back to his car in silence. That night, he sat in his office, staring at the sketch. The man looked nothing like him, but he wanted to. He wanted to be the man she'd imagined, the man who sat on benches and talked about trees and remembered how to show up. The DNA results arrived 3 days later, 99.9% match. There it was, proof. But it didn't change anything, because in his heart, he already knew. The moment he saw her birthmark, he knew. The moment she handed him the sketch, he felt it. The moment she said, "Are you coming back?" he wanted nothing more than to say yes, and mean it later that evening. Evan opened Rachel's old letter again. He read the last paragraph aloud. If you ever find her, Evan, love her the way I know you can. Don't try to be perfect. Just be there. She'll do the rest. He folded the letter slowly, put it back in its envelope, and whispered into the stillness of his home. I will. Victor Whitmore arrived at Evan's office without calling ahead, as usual. He didn't knock, just pushed the door open like he owned the place. In some ways, he had for years. He wore his usual gray wool coat, the expensive one that made him look more like a senator than a businessman. His eyes swept the room like a man measuring what needed to be taken back. Evan, he said coolly. You've been difficult to reach. Evan didn't stand. He didn't offer coffee. He just watched his uncle walk across the room and sit down across from him, folding one leg over the other like a man settling in for a lecture. Victor set down a folder on the desk, the edge perfectly aligned with the grain of the wood. What is it this time? Evan asked. Victor smiled. Polite. Practiced. I've seen the reports, he said. I know about the girl, Rachel's child. Evan's jaw twitched. She's not Rachel's child, he replied. She's my daughter. Victor's smile didn't change. Evan, come on, let's not romanticize this. You're a busy man. You're leading a billion-dollar firm through a volatile fiscal quarter. You don't have time to play house. Evan leaned back. You intercepted her letters. Victor blinked. I don't know what you think you found. I know what I found. Evan interrupted. 17 unopened envelopes, 3 voicemails marked as spam. You made sure I never knew. Victor didn't flinch. That was the thing about Victor. He never showed cracks, only angles. You were 26, he said. Your parents had just died. You were drinking coffee for dinner and working through the night. A child would have broken you. You don't know that. No, Victor said, but I knew your father, and I knew the pressure he put on you. I watched it crush him. I wasn't going to let it crush you, too. Evan stood now, slowly, deliberately. You didn't protect me, he said. You controlled me. Victor's voice hardened. I built this company while you grieved. While you floated through meetings half awake, I protected your stake, cleaned up your missteps, and made sure Arc North didn't fall apart before it began. And I'm grateful for that, Evan said. But this, you kept my child from me. You buried a piece of my life to keep me obedient. Victor stood too. She's not your life, he said, voice rising. She's a complication, a liability,
a distraction from everything we've worked for. Evan didn't respond right away. He turned to the window.
The city stretched wide below them, shimmering, distant, cold. "She has Rachel's eyes," he said softly. "She sits under trees and draws things she feels. She carries around a dinosaur named Lucas, and when she looks at me, I feel more real than I've felt in years." Victor was silent. Evan turned back. "I'm done hiding behind you," he said. "I'm done letting you decide what matters." Victor picked up the folder. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Evan replied, "but it's mine to make." Victor paused at the door. "I have contacts on the board," he said, "people who care more about stability than sentiment. If you step off the path, if you start making decisions that threaten the company, I will act." Evan nodded. "I'm counting on it." After Victor left, Evan sat down and opened his email. Lena had sent over enrollment forms from Callie's school, details about her reading level, favorite teachers, even a list of allergies, all things he should have known already. All things he now wanted to know by heart. He texted Elaine, "Can I see her again Friday?" The response came an hour later. "Okay, but no big conversations yet. Just presence." Presence. Evan repeated the word aloud. He left work early that day, turned off his phone, went home and opened the drawer that still held the old shoebox Rachel had once filled with ticket stubs and postcards. He hadn't touched it in years, not since college. There, tucked between a museum flyer and a photo of the two of them on the Oregon coast, was a postcard in Rachel's handwriting. "You were always chasing things. Evan. I just hope someday you find what you're running toward." He ran a finger over the words. Then he closed the box and began to pack it with things for Callie. A tiny silver ring Rachel used to wear. A photo of her painting in the backyard. One of her brushes, still stained with blue. By the time Friday came, he was ready. Callie was waiting on the bench again, legs swinging back and forth. She smiled when she saw him. "Hi, Evan. Hi, Callie." They walked to a nearby park, sat on the grass, drew trees. This time, Evan's tree leaned a little less. "You're improving," she said. "Still wobbly." She giggled. He handed her the box. She opened it slowly, curious. One by one, she pulled out the items. The brush, the ring, the photo. She stared at them. This was hers. "Yeah," Evan said softly. "I thought maybe you should have them." Callie didn't speak for a long time. Then she looked up at him. "Why did you keep them?" He hesitated. "Because I missed her," he said. Callie nodded. "Very small. I miss her too." They didn't say much after that. Just sat in the grass until the sky turned gold. Before they parted, Callie asked him something that nearly undid him. "If I ever needed you," she said, "would you come?" Evan looked at her, his throat tight, his hands still. "Every time," he whispered, and he meant it. Evan hadn't expected the ache. He thought he was prepared for it, prepared to go slowly, to wait, to earn each minute with Callie. But nothing prepared him for the way it lingered after their visits. The echo of her voice in his head, the way her small hand had brushed his sleeve. The ache came at night, when the silence settled in and he realized how much time he had already lost. On Saturday morning, he drove across the city with the intention of dropping off another gift, a photo album he had made from old college pictures of Rachel. But as soon as Elaine opened the door, he knew something was wrong. She didn't smile, didn't even invite him inside. Callie wasn't in sight. Evan tried to keep his voice steady. "Is this a bad time?" Elaine folded her arms. "She's upstairs." "Did something happen?" Elaine stepped out and closed the door behind her. "She had nightmares last night," she said. "She cried for Rachel. then asked me if you were her dad. Evan's heart stilled. She asked that Elaine nodded, and I didn't lie, but I didn't explain either. I told her it's not a simple story. She was quiet after that. Then this morning, she told me she didn't want to see you today. The words hit harder than expected. Evan had spent years in boardrooms negotiating mergers worth hundreds of millions. He'd walked away from contracts that could tank stock prices, but this one sentence from a 7-year-old girl, it shattered him. I think you should give her space, Elaine added gently. She's confused. You're not just a nice man anymore. You're someone who might have been there and wasn't. Evan nodded. His voice caught before he could respond. When he finally spoke, it came out in pieces. I don't blame her. I didn't know. Elaine, I believe you, she said, but she's still grieving. Evan, in her own quiet way. He nodded again and stepped back from the porch. Will you give her the album? Elaine accepted it with a nod. Eventually, when she's ready. Back in his car, Evan didn't start the engine right away. He sat with his hands resting on the steering wheel, watching the rain begin to fall. Small, light drops tapping against the windshield. Then his phone buzzed. It was Lena. I think you're going to want to see this, she said. I found more letters. Evan didn't answer. They were never delivered. All returned, marked, not at this address. Same handwriting. I ran it through a match. It's Victor's. Evan closed his eyes. Of course it was. He also diverted incoming mail from Rachel's attorney, including the copy of her will. Evan turned toward the passenger seat, where Rachel's postcard still lay inside his glove compartment. The one that said, I hope someday you find what you're running toward. He had, but he'd found it late. And now, even the child he wanted to protect was pushing him away. What do I do now? He asked softly. On the other end, Lena didn't answer right away.
Take a breath, she finally said. And remember, this isn't a contract. It's a relationship. You can't force it into form. You just have to keep showing up. That night, Evan went home and did something he hadn't done in years. He painted. He pulled out a blank canvas and opened a set of untouched paints from the closet. Rachel had bought them once, saying he needed color in his life. Back then, he'd laughed. Now, he let the colors speak. He didn't know what he was painting until it was almost done. It was a crooked tree. 2 figures beneath it, one tall, one small, their hands not touching, just close. The next morning, Evan received a call he hadn't expected. It wasn't Elaine. It was Martha Evans, Rachel's mother. They hadn't spoken since the funeral, when Evan showed up late and left early, overwhelmed and out of place. I heard from Elaine, she said. Evan sat down at his kitchen table. I understand if you don't want to talk. She told me what's been happening, Martha interrupted. Callie hasn't smiled much since Rachel died, but after she started spending time with you, it's different. Evan didn't speak. I was angry. Martha continued. Still am. You were supposed to be part of Rachel's future. You weren't. I blamed you. But now, I'm not so sure. Evan exhaled slowly. I failed her, he said. I failed both of them. Martha's voice softened. Maybe. But you came back, and you're trying. That matters. A pause. Would you come to dinner? She asked. Nothing formal, just family. Evan blinked. Callie doesn't want to see me. She's conflicted, Martha said. That doesn't mean she doesn't want you there. He hesitated. I don't want to make things harder, Martha said gently. Sometimes showing up is the hardest part, but it's how you begin. That evening, Evan stood at the Parkers' front door,
holding a plate of roasted vegetables and a bottle of sparkling cider. The door opened. Callie stood there. She didn't smile, but she didn't run either. "I made your favorite," Evan said softly. "Carrots. Or at least, I think they're your favorite." She looked at him, then nodded. "Mine too." Dinner was quiet. Awkward, even, but it was real. Afterward, Callie showed him a new sketchbook. "I've been drawing dreams," she said. "Can I see?" She hesitated, then handed it to him. One sketch stopped him cold. It was a picture of her curled in bed, eyes closed. A shadow stood by the door. The shadow had a tie and messy hair. "You dream about me?" he asked gently. Callie looked away. "Sometimes. I don't know if you're staying." Evan reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded note. It was written on the back of Rachel's last postcard. He handed it to her. She unfolded it, read the words slowly. "If you ever need me, I'll come. Every time. No matter what." Callie folded it again, put it in her sketchbook. "Okay," she whispered, and for the first time in days, she smiled. The attic smelled like cedar and dust. Robert Parker's steps were slow and deliberate as he led Evan up the narrow wooden stairs. The beam of light from his flashlight swept over storage bins and boxes, casting long shadows across the low ceiling. Rachel didn't keep much, Robert said quietly, but she packed a few things away, in case Callie ever wanted to know. They reached the far corner, where a stack of plastic bins sat beneath a faded quilt. Robert rested his hand on one of them. She wrote letters. He added, "Said if you ever came back, I should give you this." Evan knelt down and opened the box carefully. Inside were layers of folded papers labeled in Rachel's handwriting. There were envelopes addressed to Evan, Callie, and some simply marked "for later." A lump formed in his throat. Robert sat down on a wooden crate nearby, his knees stiff. "I didn't know she tried to contact you," he said. "I thought you just left." Evan looked up. "I didn't. I never got her calls. My uncle, he filtered everything." Robert nodded slowly, as if the missing puzzle piece had finally been found. "Rachel always believed you'd come back." He paused, his voice rough. Even at the end, Evan opened the top envelope. Rachel's handwriting was instantly familiar, slanted, elegant, alive. "Evan, if you're reading this, then maybe the world has bent back toward Grace. Maybe you've found her. Maybe you've seen her eyes and felt something awaken in you that was always there, just sleeping. Callie is everything I hoped for. Curious, brave, stubborn like you, gentle like my mother, loud when she's supposed to be quiet. Quiet when the world wants her loud. She knows about you in pieces. I told her you had a name like a tree, that you love black coffee. That once, you sat on the beach and told me the stars made you feel small in a good way. She's got your birthmark, the crescent. It made her feel special. I didn't tell her the rest. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But it felt cruel to give her your name without your presence. If you ever read this, just promise me one thing: don't come back with apologies. Come back with hands ready to hold her world. No matter how small, she doesn't need perfect. She needs present. Rachel. Evan didn't move for a long time. The paper trembled slightly in his hand. He read the letter again, then a third time. Then he folded it carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Robert watched him. She kept your photo in her wallet, he said, until the day she died. Evan's voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't deserve that. Robert nodded. Maybe not, but she gave it to you anyway. Evan helped Robert back down the stairs. In the living room, Martha was waiting with tea. Her eyes were tired, but not hostile. You found it? She asked. Evan nodded. She believed in him more than he believed in himself, Martha said softly.
That was always Rachel's way. Callie came downstairs as Evan stood to leave. She was holding her sketchbook. Grandpa said you were reading Mommy's letters. She said, I was? Evan replied. Did she write about me all the time? He said, she said you were brave and kind and that you liked the stars. Callie walked over and handed him the sketchbook. On the newest page, she'd drawn 3 figures, a woman standing beside a tall man and a girl with pigtails. Above them was a single star, big and shining. That's her, Callie said, watching us. Evan knelt beside her. Can I keep this one okay? She said, then added, but only if you come back. He nodded. I'll come back every time. He stood to leave, pausing in the doorway. Thank you, he said to Robert and Martha. For everything. Robert simply nodded, eyes filled with 100 unsaid things. Outside, the sky had turned to ash. Soft gray clouds stretched over the rooftops, and the air smelled like rain that couldn't decide if it wanted to fall. Evan sat in his car for a while, Rachel's letter on the seat beside him, the sketchbook pressed to his chest. He could still feel her in every word, every stroke of ink. It was like she'd never really left just hidden pieces of herself in Callie, in the house, in the attic air, back at his apartment. Evan poured himself a glass of water and sat at the table in silence. The city glowed outside his window, indifferent as always. But something inside him had changed. He picked up his phone and dialed Lena. I want everything, he said. Every message Rachel ever tried to send, every call log, every email bounced. I want to know what else he buried. I already started, she said. And there's more. Evan, a lot more. He closed his eyes. I'm going to take it public. Lena hesitated. Are you sure if Victor hid all this, if he manipulated the company's decisions using my personal life, then it's not just my mistake? It's systemic, and it needs to be undone. She didn't argue. I'll prepare a brief. Also, Evan added, Rachel once told me Arc North should do more than make money, that it should stand for something. Lena's voice shifted. Like what legacy? Not just through profit, through impact, through healing. I'll draft a proposal for a charitable foundation. In her name. Yes, Evan said. Then he added, quieter. Callie's name, too. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. So he returned to the canvas. He painted a second crooked tree, taller now, and beneath it, he added a bench. On the bench sat 2 figures, and this time their hands touched. Callie found the letter by accident. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just after homework and before dinner. Elaine had asked her to clean out the small bookshelf in the hallway, the one that held Rachel's old sketchbooks and journals. Callie pulled out a thin black journal and opened it at random. There it was. A letter addressed in her mother's handwriting. To Callie when you're ready. Callie didn't ask for permission. She just sat on the floor, cross-legged, and read. She read every word, slowly, carefully, and by the end, she wasn't crying. She wasn't even blinking. She just stared at the last sentence. If you ever meet him, remember that it wasn't his choice to disappear. It was someone else's. Someone who thought he was protecting him, but was really protecting his control. Her stomach turned. She read it again, and again, until Elaine found her an hour later, the letter still in her hands, the hallway light casting shadows across her face. Elaine froze. You found it. Callie looked up. He didn't leave, she said. No, Elaine said softly. Callie's voice broke on the next word. Then why didn't he come? Elaine sat beside her, her back resting against the hallway wall. Because someone stopped him. Someone powerful.
Uncle Victor. Elaine blinked. Callie held up the letter. It says so right here. He blocked the letters, the calls. He didn't want Evan to know about me. Elaine nodded. Callie looked away. I thought Evan didn't care, that he chose to leave. I know, Elaine said. We all thought that for a while, even your grandparents. Callie's voice was very quiet. Does he know I read this, Noah? Elaine replied, but maybe he should. Callie folded the letter and stood. She walked into the living room where Evan was sitting on the couch with a book in his lap. She handed him the letter. He read it once, slowly, then again, faster. When he looked up, his hands were shaking. I never wanted you to believe I didn't care, he said. I would have come. I would have been there. Callie sat beside him, knees drawn to her chest. I was mad at you, I know, but I think I was sadder. Evan nodded. I was sad too, all the time. I just didn't know why. They sat together in silence for a while. Then Callie leaned her head against his arm. Mom said you liked stars, she whispered. I still do. She did too. I know. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a tiny charm, a silver star, hanging from a frayed string. She gave me this when I was 5, Callie said. Said it would help me remember to look up. Evan swallowed hard. She was good at that, he said, helping people look up. Callie smiled. It was small, but real. Do you want to come to my class next week? She asked. We're doing family stories, and I want to draw one about us. Evan blinked. I'd love to. Later that night, when Callie had gone to bed, Evan sat with Elaine in the kitchen. She's starting to forgive you, Elaine said, but she's also grieving something new now. What do you mean she's grieving the story she believed? That you left. That it made sense. Now she knows it wasn't true, and that's confusing. Evan rubbed his eyes. She shouldn't have had to carry any of this. She's strong, Elaine said, but yeah, she's just a kid. Evan looked at her. I'm going to confront Victor. Elaine didn't flinch. Are you ready for that? I have to be. He paused. I want to clear Rachel's name, too. She fought for so long, and no one listened. Elaine nodded slowly. She'd be proud of you. Angry it took this long, but proud. The next morning, Evan walked into Arc North with a fire in his chest. He didn't go to his office. He went straight to the boardroom. Lena was already there, documents stacked in front of her, her tablet open to a slide deck labeled Whistleblower Brief, Internal Suppression of Personal Communication, Impacting Leadership Transparency. Victor was also there. So were 4 board members, 2 legal advisors, and a quiet tension thick enough to cut. Evan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply laid the truth out in full. How Victor had intercepted Rachel's letters, how he had manipulated Evan's grief to tighten control over Arc North, how he had silenced communication from legal representatives, effectively obstructing Rachel's final will and any pathway for Evan to discover his daughter's existence. Lena backed every statement with documented evidence, phone logs, mail interceptions, legal correspondence with forged return notices. The room fell into stunned silence. Victor stood, face red. This is character assassination. Evan looked him in the eye. This is accountability. Victor turned to the board. You'll lose your shareholder confidence if this goes public. The press will. This is going public. Evan said, today. He reached into his folder and pulled out a press statement. It was already signed. I'm not protecting your reputation anymore. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he looked old, not powerful, not in control, just tired, beaten.
One of the board members cleared her throat. "We'll discuss your removal this afternoon, Mr. Whitmore." Victor didn't reply. He just walked out. The boardroom remained quiet for a long moment. Then Lena closed her laptop. "Now," she said, "shall we talk about the Rachel Evans Foundation by the end of the week?" The announcement had made headlines. Arc North CEO exposes internal corruption, launches foundation in memory of lost partner. Evan didn't read the full article. He just watched Callie hold his hand in the hallway at school, pulling him toward the classroom bulletin board where her latest drawing was pinned. "This one's you," she said proudly. "And me, and Mom." The drawing showed 3 stars over a crooked tree. And beneath the tree, 3 figures, side by side, smiling. For the first time in over a decade, Evan didn't start his morning with a company briefing or a market review. Instead, he found himself standing awkwardly inside a second-grade classroom filled with small chairs, stick figure drawings taped to walls, and the sound of kids laughing without reservation. Callie spotted him from across the room. She didn't run. She walked, deliberate, calm. But her eyes sparkled the moment she reached him. "You came. You asked." Evan replied, "That makes it easy." She handed him a small index card. His name was written in bright orange marker. "Wear this," she said. "It means you're my guest." He pinned it to his chest. They sat together at the back of the room while the other kids shared stories of grandparents and uncles and weekend camping trips. Then it was Callie's turn. She walked to the front of the class and held up her drawing the crooked tree again, now colored in bright autumn reds and golds. Beneath it were 3 figures holding hands. "This is my family," she said. "That's me. That's my mom. And that's my dad. I didn't know him for a long time, but I do now." Evan watched her with a pride so deep it ached. After school, they walked to the bakery near the park. Callie picked out 2 cookies, one shaped like a star, the other like a tree. "Tradition," she declared. "We do this every Friday now." He smiled. "Deal." At the corner table, while she crunched the edge of her star cookie, she looked up at him suddenly. "Do you think Mom knows?" Evan paused. "I think she does." "Does she see us?" "I believe so." Callie nodded, like that made perfect sense. "Okay." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a tiny photo, a younger Rachel, sitting cross-legged on a blanket, laughing at something just outside the frame. "She liked Fridays, too," Callie said. Evan traced the edge of the photo with his thumb. She laughed with her whole body. He said, "Even when she was angry, she used to yell at the radio." "She still does," Evan said, "in my memory." They sat in silence for a while, each lost in a piece of her. Later that night, Evan opened the file from Lena. There was more. Victor had been selling small percentages of Evan's shares during periods of absentee control, tiny enough to go unnoticed, but cumulative enough to shift power subtly. He had been planning a full acquisition through proxies. Evan closed the file. He should have been furious. Instead, he just felt sad. Sad for all the time lost. Sad for the version of himself who had once believed being powerful meant being distant. He called Lena. "Close it," he said. "Initiate legal action. But no press. I want it quiet." She understood. "You sure?" "Yes. Let the lawyers handle the damage. I'm done letting anger take up my time." She smiled through the phone. "You've changed. Maybe I've just remembered who I was supposed to be." That weekend, Evan took Callie and the Parkers to a fall festival outside the city. There were hay rides, caramel apples, and face painting. Callie asked to be painted like a star. "You sure?" the artist asked. "I'm sure." Evan watched as she sat perfectly still while silver and gold were brushed across her cheeks and forehead. When she turned to him, she grinned.
"I'm the sky now," she said. "You always were." That evening, back at the house. Callie stood in the doorway to her bedroom, holding a pillow and a flashlight. "Can I show you something?" Evan nodded. She led him inside and closed the door. Then she turned on the flashlight and pointed it at the ceiling. Tiny stars lit up, glow in the dark stickers that covered almost every inch. "I made this with Mom," she said. "We used to lie on the floor and name them." Evan lay down beside her. "Want to show me?" She smiled. "That one's courage. That one's hope. That one's pancake. Pancake, I was hungry that day." He laughed. They named stars until her eyelids began to flutter, and just before she fell asleep, she whispered something into the quiet. "I don't feel alone anymore." Evan blinked up at the ceiling. Neither did he. The next morning, while she was still asleep, he walked out to the porch and found Martha sitting with a cup of tea. "She trusts you," she said softly. "I'm still earning it. You always will be. That's what makes it real." He nodded. "I'm sorry for the years I lost. So are we. But you're here now." A pause. "She's going to need you when questions get harder." "I'll be ready." Martha handed him a folded piece of paper. It was a copy of Rachel's will. "She left you guardianship. Elaine didn't tell you right away. She wasn't sure you'd want it. I do. She knew you would. Eventually." He folded the paper gently. She was right. As he stood to go back inside, he paused. "Thank you," he said again. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance." Martha smiled. "We didn't give it. Callie did." That afternoon, Callie insisted on another Friday tradition, planting a tree. "For Mom," she said. In the backyard, Evan helped her dig a small hole and lower the sapling. They packed the soil together, patted it down. Callie tied a tiny star-shaped charm to the stem. Now she can grow too. Evan placed his hand on the earth. "I'll make sure she does." And when the wind passed through the branches above, it sounded, just for a moment, like laughter. The gala wasn't Evan's idea, it was Lena's. She pitched it over lunch at a quiet rooftop restaurant, sliding a folder across the table with a calm smile. "You need a face for the Rachel Evans Foundation," she said, "and it should be hers. But people need to see what she built." "I didn't build it," Evan said. "You're helping her legacy live. That counts." He opened the folder. Inside were renderings of the event's soft lights, quiet music, gallery spaces filled with artwork from children in underserved communities. At the center of it all, Callie's sketch, digitized and enlarged, showing 3 figures under a crooked tree. She had titled it, "Still Growing." Evan stared at it for a long time. He didn't say yes right away, but he didn't say no either. That evening, he brought the folder to Callie. "What's a gala?" she asked, stretching the word like taffy. "It's a fancy party for something important." She flipped through the mock-ups, pausing at her drawing. "They picked mine. They loved yours." She looked up. "Will people know about Mom?" "They will. And about you." "Yes." She thought about it for a while, then nodded slowly. "Okay. But I get to wear sneakers." Evan laughed. "Deal." In the weeks that followed, things moved quickly. The foundation team worked with Lena's network to build outreach programs, mentorship circles, and scholarship pipelines for young artists and kids in foster care. Evan stepped back from his daily role at ARC North, appointing a new CEO and transitioning to a board advisory role. He spent his mornings with Callie, school drop-offs, Saturday farmers markets, evening sketchbook reviews. For the first time in years, he lived in the same rhythm as his heart. When the night of the gala arrived, Evan found himself adjusting his tie in front of a mirror with shaking fingers. Callie walked in wearing a navy blue dress and bright red sneakers. "Stop fidgeting," she said. "You sound like your mom. She probably said that to you a lot." She did. Callie handed him a pin, a small silver star. "Wear it on your lapel," she said, "so people know." "Know what? That you're not just rich. You're part of something." He clipped it beside his pocket square. "You ready?" She nodded. They arrived to a soft murmur of camera flashes and low music. Inside, the room glowed with amber light and quiet movement. No big speeches, no celebrity interruptions, just warmth. And art? Callie's drawing had been printed on the opening wall. Dozens of people stopped to look at it. Some moved to tears. Evan watched from a distance. Martha and Robert arrived shortly after, followed by Elaine, who wore a simple gray dress and carried a look of steady pride. Even Lena, so often composed, dabbed at her eye when she saw the children's gallery. Later in the evening, Evan stood beside Callie at the edge of the indoor garden, an installation in the center of the room filled with saplings in soft soil, each tagged with handwritten notes from donors. Callie pointed to one near the back. "That one's ours." The note said, "For Rachel, who planted seeds of love and never stopped growing." Evan crouched beside it and placed a small painted rock at the base. It was shaped like a crescent moon. Callie leaned on his shoulder. "Do you think she's proud?" He didn't answer right away. He just nodded. Yes. They stayed that way for a long time. After the gala, while the staff began packing up, Evan wandered through the quiet venue alone. He passed by sketches of children he'd never met, each one colored with bold hope and raw honesty. Near the last display, a woman approached him. She looked about 40, with tired eyes and a kind smile. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "I'm just a small part of this." She shook her head. "My son is in foster care. He was moved 4 times last year. But this program he got accepted into the summer art camp. First time he smiled in months." Evan swallowed. "Thank you for telling me." She touched his arm. "Keep going." When he returned home that night, Callie had already fallen asleep on the couch. She was still in her dress, her sketchbook clutched loosely in her lap. He gently picked her up and carried her to bed, pulling the blanket over her and brushing a curl away from her face. She murmured something in her sleep. He couldn't quite make it out, but it sounded like home. Later, as he sat by the window in the dark, Evan finally opened the last letter Rachel had written. It had no address, no date, just his name. "Evan, if you're still running, I hope you stop soon. Not because the road ends, but because someone is waiting at the bend. I used to wonder what forgiveness would look like between us, but I don't wonder anymore. I see it every time Callie draws a star. You were never the storm. You were the shelter. You just didn't know it yet. I'm not angry you weren't there. I'm proud you showed up now, because now she gets to know. She gets to know you love her, that you came back, and that sometimes even broken roads can lead home. Always." Rachel Evan folded the letter and closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek, not out of grief, but out of something softer, gratitude. And at that moment, as the wind rustled the curtains beside him, he could almost hear her voice again. Clear, certain. "You're doing just fine. Evan." It was a gray morning when Evan received the letter. Not an email, not a message from a lawyer, a letter, real paper, folded, handwritten in sharp, impatient strokes. He read the return address, Victor Whitmore. Evan sat with it for nearly 20 minutes before opening it. Something about the weight of it, the shape of the past, felt heavier than it should. Inside, the letter was short. Evan, I won't beg for forgiveness. I don't expect it. But I think you should know I wasn't always trying to hurt you. I was trying to keep you safe. From yourself. From the chaos. From Rachel. I believed I was doing the right thing. That if I gave you enough distance, you'd stop chasing what I thought was a distraction. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. Don't worry about responding. I'm not asking for a reunion. I'm just letting you know I was wrong. And you have every right to hate me. I hope you don't. Victor Evan read it twice, and then a third time. Then he set it on the counter beside his coffee and walked outside. Callie was waiting on the porch swing, bundled in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, her sketchbook in her lap. She looked up. "You okay? I'm not sure," Evan said. "Is it about Grandpa Victor?" Evan blinked. "You knew?" Callie shrugged. "I saw the envelope." He sat beside her. "Do you want to talk about him?" she asked. "I'm not sure I do." "That's okay," she said, "but you should anyway." He looked at her. "That sounds like something your mother would say." "She probably did." He smiled faintly. They sat in silence until she leaned her head on his shoulder. Then she whispered, "You don't have to hate him to not let him in." Evan's breath caught. He looked out at the yard. He'd spent so many years mistaking control for care, power for protection. Victor hadn't ruined him out of cruelty. Not entirely. It was fear. Control born from fear. That made it harder. Not easier. He stood, walked inside, and pulled out a sheet of paper. He wrote slowly, carefully. "Victor, I'm not responding to reopen anything. This isn't a dialogue, but I read your letter, and I don't hate you. I did for a long time. I hated what you took, what you silenced, but now I'm mostly just tired of hate. I'm building something better with Callie, and with the pieces of Rachel I still carry. I hope one day you understand what you cost, but more than that, I hope you make peace with it, because I have Evan." He folded it, sealed it, and sent it. That was the last he heard from Victor. And, strangely, it was enough. 2 weeks later, the Rachel Evans Foundation launched its pilot mentorship program. Callie insisted on being part of the first session. "I want to teach the kids how to draw crooked trees," she said. "Why crooked trees?" the program coordinator asked gently. "Because they grow anyway," Callie said simply. The room fell quiet. That afternoon, Evan watched through a glass window as Callie led a dozen children in sketching trees. Some drew theirs thin, others wide. One added stars around the branches. Evan didn't interrupt. He just stood and watched. Later, Callie came out holding a drawing in each hand. "Can we hang these at home?" she asked. "We'll put them on the fridge." Evan said. "No," she replied. "Higher. Higher, like in the hallway, where you see them every day." He nodded. "Okay." That evening, over dinner, Elaine brought out a small manila folder. "What's that?" Evan asked. Something Rachel never filed. Inside was a proposal she had once drafted, a vision for a community arts center in their old neighborhood. She had outlined programming, mentorship pipelines, therapy integrations. She wanted to name it the Listening Room, Elaine said it would be a space where kids could be heard. Evan read every page. Callie looked up. "Can we still build it?" Evan nodded slowly. "Yes, we can." By spring, the proposal had gone from paper to motion. The city approved the zoning. Arc North provided the seed funding. Volunteers began gathering supplies, and on the first day of groundbreaking, Evan stood beside Callie in the middle of a dirt lot, both of them holding shovels. She wore her red sneakers. He wore the star pin. Photographers asked them to pose, but Evan asked them to wait. Instead, he looked at Callie. "Do you want to say anything?" She looked at the microphone, then at the crowd, then back at Evan. And she said, simply, "My mom taught me how to see things that weren't there yet." She paused. "Now we're making them real." The audience clapped, but Evan didn't hear them. He was too focused on her. The girl who had asked if he was her father. The girl who had redrawn his life with crayons and honesty. That night, they walked through the nearly finished garden near the new center. Callie looked up. "Do you still think about her?" "Every day." "What do you think about," he considered, "how much she loved," he said, "and how much she believed." In second chances. They sat on a bench beneath a tree, barely taller than Callie. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her sketchbook. One last drawing. 3 trees now. One crooked, one straighter, one still small, each one with a star above it. "Families grow," she said. Evan placed his hand on the page. "They do." The wind moved through the leaves above them, not loud, but enough to make them look up. And just for a second, it felt like Rachel was there again, not gone, just listening. It had been 1 year, 12 months since the moment Evan had stood in front of that crooked tree in Callie's drawing and heard a question that changed his life. "Are you my father?" So much had happened since. The Rachel Evans Foundation was now running programs in 3 cities. The listening room was nearly finished walls painted by volunteers, windows lined with bright glass mosaics made by children whose names Evan didn't yet know, but whose stories were already seeding something new. But tonight wasn't about buildings or headlines. Tonight was for something quieter. Callie had asked for it, a remembrance night. Just her, Evan, Elaine, and the Parkers. No speeches, no cameras, just one projector, a blanket, and a sky full of stars. They set up in the backyard where Callie had planted the tree. It had grown taller only slightly, but enough that its leaves now brushed the edge of the porch light. Callie wore a jacket too big for her again, this time with a small stitched patch of a silver star on the elbow. "I added it myself," she said. "To remember." Evan smiled as he unfolded the blanket. "You're getting good at remembering." Elaine brought out the hot chocolate, while Robert set up the small projector against a white sheet strung between 2 trees. The first image flickered into view, a photo of Rachel, arms wide, spinning barefoot in the grass. Callie reached for Evan's hand. "She always looked like that when she laughed," he whispered, "like nothing could touch her." More photos followed. Rachel holding baby Callie. Rachel painting in the sun. Rachel lying on the floor pointing at glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. Then a short video clip. Evan's voice from years ago. Off-screen. "Why the crooked tree?" Rachel laughing. "Because it's mine." The screen faded to black. Silence followed. No one rushed to speak. Eventually, Callie did. She didn't get everything she deserved, she said quietly, but she gave everything she had. Elaine nodded, eyes wet. Robert reached over and squeezed Martha's hand. Evan sat still, letting the ache wash through. It wasn't sharp anymore, just soft, like the pain you carry when you miss someone you know you'll never stop loving. "She would have loved this," he finally said. Callie looked up. "She does." Later, after the Parkers had gone inside, and Elaine was packing up the mugs, Evan and Callie remained on the porch steps. Above them, the stars began to push through the sky, one by one. Callie nudged him. "Want to name them again?" He smiled. You start. She pointed. That one's faith. He nodded. That one's memory. That one's forgiveness. They sat in silence. Then Evan pointed to the one just above the tree. What's that one called? Callie smiled. That one's Rachel. The breeze shifted. The leaves rustled. And in the hush that followed, neither of them said anything more. They didn't need to. Inside, taped to the refrigerator, was Callie's latest drawing. It showed 5 figures now, 3 big ones, 2 small ones, one carrying a backpack, the other holding a sparkler. Above them, a crooked tree. And above that, a sky filled with stars, each one labeled faith, memory, forgiveness, Rachel. But one was left unnamed. It simply read, "The Star We Remember." In the final moments of the evening, just before Evan turned off the porch light, he glanced back once more at the tree. A silver charm swung gently from the lowest branch. It sparkled once in the moonlight, then stilled, and with that the night folded into quiet. Not an ending, but something gentler, a beginning. Not every family is born. Some are chosen, some are rediscovered, and some are drawn back together by a star no one else could see. Evan Whitmore didn't come looking for redemption, but when a little girl with a quiet voice and a matching birthmark asked him the question of a lifetime, he couldn't walk away. What followed was more than just reunion. It was repair, not just of a family, but of a man's soul. Through Callie's gentle courage, Rachel's lasting love, and a tree that refused to grow straight, we've witnessed something rare. A story where truth wasn't shouted but revealed, where healing wasn't instant but earned, and where a forgotten legacy now blooms in the lives of children given a voice they were once denied. So the next time you wonder if one moment, one child, one decision can change the world, remember this story and ask yourself, what if the person you didn't know you were missing had been waiting for you all along? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. More powerful stories of quiet strength and second chances await. Thank you for watching and for remembering.